All right, welcome to the Explainer. Today we are digging into a super powerful tool, one that can help you figure out if your big project is going to be a home run or just a giant money pit. We're talking about cost-benefit analysis.
So you've got a great idea for a project. We've all been there, right? You have that gut feeling, that spark. You just know it's a winner. But, and this is the big but, how do you prove it's actually a smart investment? How do you take that feeling and turn it into something solid, something that gets a yes from the people holding the purse strings?
Well, that's where something called a cost-benefit analysis, or CDA for short, comes in. It's basically a structured way to evaluate the economic feasibility of a project. You're just comparing its total costs to its total benefits. Sounds simple, right? But it's all about weighing the pros and cons to see if it's a go or a no-go.
Okay, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll ask if your project is worth it. Then we'll get into the cost side of things, followed by the benefits. After that, we'll tackle how to measure the stuff that's hard to measure. And finally, we'll talk about making that final decision. Let's get started.
You know, at its core, the whole process really boils down to these 4 steps. First, you've got to identify all the costs and benefits, and I mean everything. Step 2 is putting a dollar amount on them. Then you get into the numbers, analyzing things like net present value. And finally, you look at other profitability indicators to make sure you've got a clear winner on your hands.
All right, let's jump into our first big piece of the puzzle, the cost side of things. We're talking about understanding what you'll really spend. And honestly, this is where so many projects go off the rails. People just don't account for everything.
Okay, so costs really fall into 2 big buckets. You've got your direct costs. These are the no-brainers, the things you can point to directly, like developer salaries or new equipment. They're pretty easy to spot. But then you have the indirect costs. These are trickier. Think office rent, administrative salaries, the stuff that supports the whole company, not just your one project. They're harder to pin down, but they are absolutely crucial to include.
So, how do you even start estimating all this? Well, there are 2 main schools of thought. You can go top-down, where you start with a big-picture budget and break it down. It's fast and simple, great for the early days. The downside, you can miss a ton of details. Or you can go bottom-up. This is where you start with every single tiny task and add them all up. It's way more accurate for sure, but man, is it time-consuming.
All right, we've talked about the scary part, the costs. Now, let's get to the good stuff, the benefit side of things. Because this is about more than just the bottom line. This is the why behind the whole project. And this is so important to get. The benefits, they aren't just about money. Not at all. The real value of a project often goes way beyond what you see in the first few months of revenue.
Now, don't get me wrong, the economic benefits are a huge deal. We're talking about increased revenue from a new product, maybe some serious cost optimization because you've automated a bunch of tasks, or just getting a leg up on your competitors. This is the stuff that directly fattens the wallet.
But then you've got to look bigger. Think about the social benefits. Yeah, I'm serious. Things like improved working conditions for your team, automating the boring stuff so they can focus on what matters. Or maybe your project actually creates new jobs. It could even be about being a better corporate citizen. These things matter a lot.
And let's not forget the technological benefits. This is about future-proofing your organization. We're talking about a massive boost in productivity, sparking real innovation, maybe even using some cool new AI. And of course, making sure everything is more secure and reliable. This is the stuff that keeps you competitive for years to come.
Okay, so this is where things get tricky. We're now at measuring the unmeasurable. How in the world do you put a value on all those intangible benefits we just talked about?
I mean, seriously, how do you put a price on an improved reputation or increased employee satisfaction? You know these things are worth a ton. Happier employees stick around, a great reputation brings in customers. But yeah, there's no invoice for good vibes.
Fortunately, people way smarter than me have come up with some strategies for this. Sometimes you just have to describe the benefit in words, a qualitative assessment. Or you can use something like a multi-criteria analysis, where you score benefits on a scale. You can even run different scenarios, best case, worst case, or just bring in some experts to get their take. The point is, you have to try to value them, even if it's not a perfect dollar amount.
All right, it's the home stretch. We've lined up the costs, we've lined up the benefits. Now it's time for making the final decision. Let's put it all together.
To really do this right, you can't just look at the upfront cost. That's why analysts use models like lifecycle costing, or LCC, and total cost of ownership, or TCO.
Both are designed to give you the full financial picture over the project's entire life. It's about thinking long-term, from creation all the way to disposal.
And if we take a closer look at life cycle costing, you'll see it makes you think about everything. What are the initial costs to get this thing off the ground? What are the day-to-day operating costs? What about future upgrades? And yeah, what's it going to cost when you finally have to decommission it? You even have to consider if you can sell off old parts for some residual value. It's the whole shebang.
And here's a perfect example of why this is so important. Look at this new CRM system. The initial cost is $280,000. Ouch! But that's not the real number. When you add in 5 years of operating and disposal costs, the actual total is over $500,000. That's the number you need to be thinking about when you weigh the benefits.
And really, that's what this is all about. The beauty of the CBA method is its simplicity and its power. It cuts through the noise. It takes a really complex and, let's be honest, kind of scary decision, and it gives you a clear, logical way to assess if it's really feasible. So, at the end of the day, a cost-benefit analysis isn't just about spreadsheets and formulas. It's a mindset. It's a framework for thinking that pushes you to see the whole story, not just the easy parts. So the next time you have a big idea, I want you to ask yourself, what hidden costs will you uncover and what overlooked benefits will you bring to light?